Our sixth chapter is life process, and we all know that some maintenance process, are takes place in the living organism must go on even when they are not doing anything particularly. Sometimes when we are in deep sleep, even though at that time also our body is undergoing for some process. And in this chapter we are going to see what are the life process that makes us enabled to exist in this earth. What all things are help us to sustain here. And the basic important activities performed by an organism to withstand life are called life process. And it helps in that maintenance and survival of that organism too. For example, the nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion, all these things are explained in this chapter. First one is nutrition, and this video is explaining about our first life process, that is nutrition, and it is a biochemical and physiological process by which an organism uses food for their health and growth. Okay, and this nutrition can be of various types in various organisms. We know that in our biosphere there are various types of organisms which can be varied according to their structure, function, and their organization too. And based on these things, the mode of nutrition, the kind of feeding is always depend upon to these things. And the general requirement for energy and the availability of the raw materials, availability of the inorganic materials for the food is fulfilled in different ways in different organisms. And it can be commonly divided into two types, that are autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. And these terms are very familiar to you. So there is a brief explanation about this autotrophic nutrition. And it's a process in which the organism produces their food from the simple inorganic materials. That means the raw materials that are available from the nature itself. And they are water, carbon dioxide, some kind of mineral salts, and the sunlight. And the general equation for the autotrophic nutrition that we studied in the name of photosynthesis is 6 CO2 plus 12 H2O, that converted into 6 is H12O6. In addition to that, there is O2 and 6H2O is also generated. And what is happening in this process? The intaken materials, that means the carbon dioxide and water, is converted into the production of carbohydrates. That carbohydrate is explained here as C6H12O6. That is a formula of the glucose. Okay, so glucose is a kind of carbohydrate. It is a form of carbohydrate. And carbohydrate is a majority of the energy sources that found in the living organisms, various form of carbohydrates. And in plants, they can utilize the energy, and the energy can be stored in the form of starch. In plants, the stored form of energy or the stored form of carbohydrate is in the form of starch. But it is extremely differ in animal, because in animals the stored energy is in the form of glycogen. And when it is required, when there is not enough nutrient is available for them, they can use the stored form of energy, that is in the form of starch and in glycogen. And this is a structure of a leaf. This is a cross section of a leaf, and you can see this is the figure that given at the bottom portion is an enlarged portion of the cross section of leaf that is bubbled there. And see, it is very clear that the upper surface is covered with the epidermis, and just below to that we can see the presence of chloroplast there. And chloroplast is a kind of plastids where chlorophyll is located. And from the diagram itself, it is very clear that chloroplast is located within that cube-shaped figure, and it is in the encircled form. And there are a lot of air spaces are locating in between these cells, and at the portion of lower epidermis, we can see that there is a presence of two guard cells are there, and in between two guard cells there is a small opening is there, and that tiny pore in between two guard cells is known as stomata. Okay, so this stomata is located just bottom portion of a leaf to the lower epidermis. And chloroplasts are cell organelles which contain chlorophyll that is essential for photosynthesis. This is a previous knowledge that you can recollect from the previous standards. And stomata. What is stomata? It is a tiny pores that helps for the gaseous exchange that takes place in plants and helps in the transpiration. Okay, and this from the figure itself, it is very clear that the stomatal pore that can be seen in between just to the center of that diagram, and that pore is covered with two guard cells at either sides, that pale yellow color cells, that are guard cells. And that guard cells are meant to be protect that stomata. Okay, and it happens in the circumstances that when these guard cells can be open and close, that means the opening and the closing of these guard cells are when these guard cells become swell, the water flows into them. When the water is excess in plant or leaf, this plant flows into these guard cells, and as a result it gets swelled. So due to the swelling of these guard cells, what happens? It gets dragged to either sides. So as a result, the stomata gets open. Okay, and what happens in vice versa? If there is not enough water in the leaf, there is not enough water to flow to the guard cells, so that guard cells cannot be swelled and it remains as close as itself. Okay, so that is how the guard cells protect the stomata, open and close. And what happens if the stomata remaining opening? Then only the gaseous exchange, the exchanging of carbon dioxide is from the atmosphere takes place through this stomata. And the transpiration, the excess water that present within the leaves are to be undergone for the transpiration process and have to be expelled through the atmosphere. This takes place through the stomata. And if there is not enough water in the leaf, this stomatal pore have to be closed, otherwise the remaining water will be lost to the stomata. Okay, so the function of the stomata are mainly the gaseous exchange and the transpiration, and how the guard cells protect the stomata. If there is excess water, guard cells get swelled, and as a result it gets dragged to each other and the stomatal pore get open or exposed. If there is not enough water is present in the leaf, the guard cells remaining closed, so the stomata cannot be exposed to the atmospheric air. So the autotrophic nutrition is almost over, and the photosynthesis and the matter related to the stomata is already discussed in the earlier classes. So I think that is enough to you. Next type is heterotrophic nutrition. From the term itself, autotrophic, auto means self. The nutrition mode is self-preparation. But here heterotrophic, hetero means by other means. It's a mode of nutrition in which organisms depend upon other organisms for food to survive. Other organism means obviously it should be the photosynthetic organisms or autotrophic organisms. Okay, and this heterotrophic nutrition should be of various kind. First one is an example. We can take an example of humans for that holozoic nutrition. That is, an organism feed by ingesting the food. That means consuming the food, digest it, and absorb the nutrition from there into their bodies. Okay, that is what happen in humans and other animals. And then some parasites. Parasitic nutrition is a kind of mode of nutrition where the parasites obtains their nutrients from living organism. Okay, so if these parasites depend upon the plants or animals, they absorb the nutrients that cooked up within that host body. That is parasitic nutrition. And saprophytic nutrition is a type of nutrition that happens when the microorganisms feed on dead and decaying matter. Okay, they are feed on the dead organisms, even on plants and animals. So these are the basic types of heterotrophic nutrition. And the nutrition in amoeba. Amoeba is a very microscopic organism, single unicellular organism is that. And we know that how the nutrition takes place in amoeba, it's very simple. That means if it requires food, what happens is that the pseudopodia of amoeba surround the food particle and engulfs that food particle into it. Okay, make that food particle trapped within their body using their pseudopodia, and when it is entered into their body, it formed as a food vacuole. It is trapped in a vacuole form, and within that, what happened? Absorption, the nutrients that obtained from that food particle gets absorbed, and then the assimilation takes place. The waste materials get removed from their body and eject out from the body. So these are the mode of nutrition that happen in amoeba. The mentioning about the term pseudopodia is very, very important. Next, the nutrition in paramecium. See, amoeba is very lower organism. It's a single cellular organism, and they didn't have any particular structure to intaking the nutrition or ejecting out the waste materials. But in paramecium, it is extremely different from amoeba. Even it is a single cellular organism, it have a specified structure to the intaking of nutrient. You can see here an oral groove. It's the mouth-like part of the paramecium. Through that oral groove, the paramecium intake the nutrients, and all these things are happen within that paramecium, and through the anal pore it ejected out. So when we are coming from the amoeba to the paramecium, we can see a developing of a well-structured oral groove and anal pore is developed in the paramecium, even though it is a single cellular organism. And we are coming to the higher complex organism, that is a human beings, and we have a well-developed structure, well-developed organ system that dealing with the nutrition. Okay, and this nutrition takes place along through the alimentary canal. That's a kind of pathway, or that's a kind of long tube that extending from our mouth to the anus. Okay, in between this pathway, there are various body parts which have various functions related to the nutrition. See, you can see from the diagram, it's clear that there is mouth, pharynx is there, esophagus is there, and one thing is that at some sources the spelling of esophagus is started with ES, and in some other sources OES is the starting of esophagus, and the approved form, or we are following the form of OES, esophagus. Okay, then stomach, then small intestine is there, large intestine is there, rectum and anus is there. First one is mouth or buccal cavity. It is the entry point of the nutrition here, and the crushing of the food takes place within this mouth with the help of a set of teeth. Okay, and there is also some salivary glands are present within the mouth that can secrete saliva, and this saliva provides a liquid state, or else the food have to be make into a paste like form after the crushing or chewing. So the saliva provides a liquid stage, and the salivary amylase that present within the saliva, it's a kind of enzyme which have the ability to break down the starch. We already said that starch is the stored form of energy in the plants. So if you are consuming the starch content food, what happens? The salivary amylase present within our mouth break down this starch into the simpler form of sugar that can be the maltose. Maltose is a form of sugar. Okay, and then there is, along with teeth and salivary glands, there are muscular tongue. A tongue is present in the mouth, and it helps to the mixing up of saliva with the food. After the proper chewing within the mouth itself, the muscular tongue helps to move that chewed food to the other part, and that is the esophagus. And it's a pipe-like structure, and through that pathway the food have to move down, and takes place by the process known as peristalsis. Okay, peristalsis is that movement, and that peristaltic movement is just like wave-like movement, because that esophagus is a muscular organ, and through the continuous relaxation and contraction of that muscles of esophagus made it possible, and this wave-like movement causing the peristaltic movement that carries the food from the mouth to the next target site, that is stomach. And from the diagram itself, it is very clear that how the wave-like movement takes place. And this esophagus is also known as a food pipe, and it reaches to the next organ, that is stomach. It's a large sac-like muscular organ, and it is a part where digestive juices get mixed with the food. That means the stomach, within the stomach itself, there are some digestive juices are produced there. Okay, and the food is getting mixed with these digestive juices, and the HCl, hydrochloric acid, facilitates the action of pepsin. Pepsin is a kind of enzyme. And what happens when this HCl is adding to the stomach? HCl is a kind of acid, and it prepares an acidic medium, and this acidic medium facilitates the proper digestion of the food, and it is also the favorable medium for the action of pepsin, and this pepsin digests the protein into its constituent parts. And along with this, the stomach wall is protected by the presence of mucus, because HCl is present there, and it provides an acidic medium for the digestion of food. And due to this acidic medium, there is a chance to happen something defect to the stomach wall. And to protect that stomach wall from this acidic medium, mucus is present there. And the stomach is present with some kind of sphincter muscles which have a contraction ability. And this, due to the presence of this sphincter muscle, after the proper digestion within the stomach, the food can be moved from stomach to the next site, and that is a small intestine. Okay, and when we are observing the diagram, we get confused that why is it called as small intestine, because it's very lengthy and it is appeared as highly cold one. Then how is it possible that naming it by small intestine? Actually, when we are taking its width, it's very small compared to the large intestine. Okay, and the length of this small intestine is depend upon to the animal's diet. That means in herbivores, the small intestine is comparably more lengthy rather than the omnivores or carnivores. That means in the herbivores, they have to digest the cell wall of the plant cells also. And we know that cell walls are made up of cellulose and it is very hard substance. For that purpose, they need a lengthy small intestine because a hard work takes place there. That is because in herbivores, longer small intestine is present there. And one more thing is that within the small intestine, the digestion is getting completed and the absorption is going to be happened. And for that, the bile that's secreted from the liver consists of bile juice that present with the bile salt, makes the food alkaline because within the stomach itself it was in acidic form. And that much acidic food or that much acidic content is not can be afforded by the small intestine, so that the food have to be made into alkaline form. That is the first function of the bile that's secreted from the liver. And the next thing is emulsification of fat. That means the fat molecules are not simply absorbed to the water content blood. It is not dissolved in water. So that what have to be takes place is that the fat molecules have to be divided or cut down into small simpler form. That is a emulsification of fat. The larger fat molecules are break down into small fat globules that can be much more simply absorbed. Okay, and that is made by the presence of bile juice that's secreted from the liver, and along with that the small intestine juice are there. That means the glands of small intestine secrete some intestinal juice, and this intestinal juice also consists of some kind of enzymes are there. That enzymes also acts on food. And one more thing, the pancreas that located near to this also secretes pancreatic juice that consists of so many enzymes that also act upon this digested food. And all these enzymes made this digested food into a better absorbable form. And after the conversion of food into a good absorbable simpler nutrient form, the small intestine wall consists of a finger-like structure that is known as villi. Actually, villi is a plural form. The singular term of that is villus, V-I-L-L-U-S, villus. Okay, kind of thousands of villi are present within the small intestine. And what is the purpose of this villi? It increases the absorption surface of the small intestine, because we know that this much food have to be absorbed within the small intestine, and that occupies a small space within our body also. And within that small space we have to be absorb this much nutrients, and we require much more surface area, and to increase that absorbable surface area, villi are projected out. And then these are the enzymes that act upon various substrates such as carbohydrate, protein and fat. Majorly these are the substrates there, and along with these nucleic acids and so on are there, but in textbook these things are mentioned. And the enzymes that help in the carbohydrate digestion is first one salivary amylase, and it produced within the salivary glands, and it is act in mouth. And what is the product that obtained from the carbohydrate is that maltose within the mouth. Okay, and then when it is coming down, there is an enzyme known as pancreatic amylase that produced by pancreas, and it is act in small intestine. And within small intestine, the carbohydrate form is converted into the final product, that is glucose. And then the next substrate is protein. The protein digestion takes place by the enzyme, first enzyme pepsin, and this pepsin is secreted by gastric glands that present within the stomach. And within the stomach, these enzymes act upon the protein to form simpler peptides. And next, the protein digestion also takes place by the presence of enzyme trypsin, and it is produced by the pancreas, and it is released into the small intestine. Within small intestine, the protein is converted into peptide form by the action of trypsin. And later this protein can be converted into finer amino acids. Next substrate is fat, and the fat digestion takes place by the presence of enzyme lipase, and this lipase is produced by pancreas, and its site of release is small intestine. Okay, and within the small intestine, these lipase completed the digestion of the fats. Digestion means it converted into the smaller fatty acids and glycerols. And this glycerol is a stored form of energy in animals, including human beings. Okay, so this is a general outlook of the enzyme that act upon which substrate, where it is formed, and where it is act, and what are the products that formed from the major substrate, just like carbohydrate, protein, and fat digestions. Okay, and after the absorption that takes place in small intestine with the help of villi, it moves to the next portion, that is large intestine. And within the large intestine, from the removable food parts, the water is absorbed. Along with that, some remaining absorbable nutrients are there, that is also absorbed, and some kind of salts, and vitamin K also is absorbed from the large intestine. Okay, that means if there is something remaining within that food that is not absorbed from the small intestine, that useful nutrients are taken up by the large intestine. And after the absorption within the large intestine, the removable waste, the waste material, is eliminated as in the form of feces. And this undigested food is temporarily stored in the body part known as rectum, and it is eliminated through the anus. And this elimination is due to the presence of enough fiber content diet and water have a great role in the proper elimination of this undigested waste. If our diet is not consist within, or not filled with the fiber content diet, or if there is not enough water content is not there, what happens is that the removal or the expulsion of undigested waste must be difficult, and then the animal feel constipation. So this is parts of digestive system. Through the mouth, it is entry point of nutrition. There is salivary glands, and through the pharynx it passes down to the esophagus. Then the liver is there, then stomach, and pancreas is there, small intestine, large intestine, and rectum and anus is there, and liver secretes bile, and gallbladder stores that bile for temporarily, and this bile also mixed up with food. Pancreas secreting pancreatic juice that filled with the pancreatic amylase, and small intestine also have some kind of intestinal juices. Together all these enzymes made our food is converted into an absorbable nutrition form, and this is all about the digestive system that takes place in living beings.